The photo of my face was laminated like a restaurant menu, with my driver's license picture blown up to an 8x10 disaster that made me look like a criminal on America's Most Wanted. Brittany had actually spent money at Kinko's to make sure my humiliation would be weatherproof. If you're watching this, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from. Let me backtrack to how I ended up staring at my own face, taped to the entrance gate of the Riverside Country Club, with "Do Not Admit, Eleanor Watson," written in bold red letters underneath. Because, honey, this story starts way before today's wedding disaster. I'm Eleanor Watson, and at 67, I thought I'd seen every flavor of family drama imaginable. Raised 3 kids as a single mom after their father decided a 25-year-old secretary was more exciting than his 40-year-old wife. Put all 3 through college working double shifts at the hospital. Marcus, my youngest, was supposed to be different. He was the sensitive one, the mama's boy who called every Sunday and never forgot my birthday. That was before Brittany Collins waltzed into his life 2 years ago with her perfect blonde highlights and her talent for making people disappear. The first sign something was wrong came last Christmas. Marcus had always spent Christmas Eve at my house, our tradition for 42 years. But suddenly, Brittany's family needed him more. Then Easter became a Collins family affair. Mother's Day turned into, "We're so busy planning the wedding, Mom." Each excuse delivered with that apologetic smile that said everything and nothing. But the real kicker came 6 months ago when Marcus announced their engagement plans. Not to me directly, mind you. I found out through a Facebook post like any other acquaintance. The caption read, "She said yes, planning the perfect wedding with my perfect future wife." I called him immediately. "Congratulations, sweetheart. When's the big day?" "September 14th, he said, and I could hear Brittany's voice in the background coaching him. "It's going to be small, Mom. Just close family and friends." Close family. I let that sink in while staring at my phone. Apparently, the woman who gave birth to him, raised him alone, and paid for his college didn't qualify as close family anymore. "I'd love to help with planning," I offered, knowing the answer before I asked. "Brittany's got it all handled. She's very particular about her vision." Her vision. Not their vision. Hers. The wedding invitation arrived 3 weeks before the event. Not hand-delivered with excited hugs, not even mailed with love. It showed up in my mailbox between the electric bill and a pizza coupon. The envelope was addressed in Brittany's perfect calligraphy. "Mrs. Eleanor Watson and guest." And guest. As if I was some distant relative they felt obligated to include. I should have known then what I was walking into. Should have recognized the signs of a woman who saw me as competition for her husband's attention. But I'm old-fashioned that way. I believed family mattered. I believed my son would never let anyone treat his mother like garbage. Well, live and learn, and, as they say. So there I stood at 2 p.m. on September 14th, 2025, dressed in my best navy dress and pearl necklace, staring at my own face with a big red "Do Not Admit" stamped across it like I was some kind of wedding crasher. The young security guard looked as embarrassed as I felt. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I have strict instructions." "I can see that, honey." I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the sign. "Tell me, do you think this is normal wedding protocol?" His face turned red. I don't know, ma'am. I just follow orders." That's when I realized something that would change everything. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty. This was planned, calculated. Brittany had spent time and money ensuring I would be humiliated in the most public way possible, and that meant she was afraid of something. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in the country club parking lot, scrolling through my contacts for a number I hadn't called in 15 years. My hands weren't shaking from hurt anymore. They were shaking with something much more dangerous. Fury. See, most people don't know much about my late husband Robert's family. Robert Watson died in March 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, and I'd grieved quietly, privately, the way he would have wanted. But Robert had a brother. A very successful, very connected brother who'd made quite a name for himself in Philadelphia's legal circles. Thomas Watson, corporate attorney, family law specialist, and according to his website, expert in matrimonial investigations and asset protection. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Thomas Watson." "Tom, it's Eleanor, Robert's widow." Silence. Then, Eleanor? Good Lord, how are you? It's been too long, I know. Listen, I need a favor, a big one. Anything. What's wrong? I told him everything. The gradual isolation, the Facebook announcement, the laminated photo at the gate. By the time I finished, Tom was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Tom? You still there? I'm here. Eleanor, what you're describing, this level of deliberate exclusion from a family event, it suggests something deeper is going on. What do you mean? In my experience, when someone goes to this much trouble to keep a parent away from their child's wedding, they're usually hiding something. Something significant. My heart started beating faster. Like what? Could be financial, could be personal, could be both. Tell me about this Brittany. What do you know about her background? I realized with growing unease that I knew almost nothing. She works in marketing, I think. Met Marcus at some conference. She's from money, apparently. Her father owns some kind of business. What's her maiden name? Collins. Brittany Collins. I heard typing in the background. Eleanor, I'm going to make some calls. Can you give me 2 hours? What kind of calls? The kind that tell us who we're really dealing with. Stay by your phone. After hanging up, I sat in my car watching well-dressed guests arrive for my son's wedding. Couples laughing, families posing for photos, everyone celebrating love and new beginnings. Everything I should have been part of. Instead, I was conducting a background investigation on my new daughter-in-law from a parking lot. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mom, heard there was some confusion at the gate. Brittany says the security company made a mistake with the guest list. So sorry. Can you come back? A mistake, right. The same kind of mistake that requires lamination and red ink. I texted back, already left. Have a wonderful wedding. His response came immediately. Please come back. It's important to me that you're here. Important enough to override his wife's mistake? I doubted it. This felt like damage control. Someone had probably seen my photo and asked uncomfortable questions. I was about to drive away when my phone rang. Tom's name appeared on the screen. That was fast, I answered. Eleanor, we need to talk, in person. How soon can you get to Philadelphia? Something in his tone made my blood run cold. Tom, what did you find? Not over the phone. Trust me on this. How soon? I looked back at the country club, where my son was probably saying I do to a woman who'd just tried to ban his mother from the ceremony. I can be there in 2 hours. Good. Come straight to my office. And Eleanor? Don't mention this conversation to anyone, not even Marcus. Not yet. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the empty parking lot. Whatever Tom had discovered in his 2 hours of phone calls, it was serious enough that he wouldn't discuss it over the phone. Serious enough that he wanted to see me immediately. Serious enough that he was telling me to keep secrets from my own son. I started my car and pulled out of the country club parking lot, leaving my son's wedding behind. But I had a feeling this was just the beginning of the story, not the end. And somehow, I suspected Brittany Collins had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Tom's office in downtown Philadelphia looked exactly like what you'd expect from a successful family attorney. Mahogany everything. Law books that probably cost more than my car, and a view of the city that screamed, I win cases. He'd aged well since Robert's funeral. Still tall, still commanding, but with silver hair that made him look distinguished rather than old. The family resemblance to Robert was striking. Same intelligent green eyes. Same way of leaning forward when something had his complete attention. Eleanor, sit down. You want coffee? Water? Something stronger? Tom, just tell me what you found. He pulled out a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Brittany Collins isn't who she says she is. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean her name is Brittany Collins now, but it wasn't always. 3 years ago, she was Brittany Mitchell. Before that, Brittany Rodriguez. And before that, he flipped through papers. Brittany Chen. She's been married before? 3 times, all to wealthy men. All marriages ended in divorce settlements that left her significantly better off than when she started. I felt the room spin slightly. You're saying she's a professional wife? Yes. What's more interesting is the pattern. She targets men who've recently lost parents, particularly men who stand to inherit significant assets or life insurance payouts. The words hit me like ice water. Robert's life insurance. The policy that paid out $750,000 when he died. Money that would eventually go to Marcus as my sole heir. Tom, Marcus doesn't have that kind of money. He's a middle management accountant. Tom's expression grew darker. Eleanor, what exactly did Marcus tell you about how they met? Some conference. A business thing, I think. It was a grief counseling seminar. Young widows and widowers rebuilding after loss. Except Marcus wasn't a widower. My hands started trembling. What? The seminar was specifically for people who'd lost spouses. Marcus attended 3 months after your husband died, claiming his wife had died in a car accident. He met Brittany there. But Marcus was never married. Exactly. So either your son has been living a complete lie for the past 2 years, or someone coached him on what to say to make himself attractive to a certain type of woman. I thought about the changes in Marcus after he started dating Brittany. The new clothes, the new apartment, the sudden interest in investments and building wealth. The way he'd started asking careful questions about my finances, my insurance policies, my plans for retirement. There's more, Tom continued. Brittany's last husband, Michael Collins, died in a boating accident 6 months after they married. Ruled accidental, but the circumstances were questionable. Died? She's not just a professional wife, Eleanor. She's a widow, 4 times over, and every single husband left her everything. The room felt like it was tilting. I gripped the arms of my chair to keep steady. Are you saying she kills her husbands? I'm saying she has a pattern. She meets grieving men, marries them quickly, and within a year, she's collecting life insurance payouts. Whether through divorce or death, she always comes out ahead. We have to warn Marcus. Do we? Think about it, Eleanor. Your son lied his way into that grief counseling group. He's been asking about your finances. He allowed his new wife to ban you from their wedding. Either he's a victim or he's a willing participant. The implications crashed over me like a wave. My son, my baby boy who used to bring me dandelions and called me mama until he was 12, was either being manipulated by a serial killer or he was helping her target his own mother. What do we do? Tom leaned back in his chair. We investigate, carefully, quietly, because if I'm right about Brittany, and if Marcus is working with her, then you're in more danger than just being excluded from family gatherings. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mom, I know you're hurt about today. Can we talk tomorrow? Brittany wants to make things right. I showed Tom the message. He read it, and his jaw tightened. Eleanor, I want you to go home and act completely normal. Don't let on that you know anything. We need time to gather more evidence. Evidence of what? That your new daughter-in-law is planning to make you her 5th victim, and your son might be helping her do it. I stared at Tom's serious face, trying to process what he was telling me. 6 hours ago, my biggest problem was being excluded from a wedding. Now I was potentially the target of a murderer who'd married my son. And the most terrifying part? I wasn't sure Marcus was innocent. The drive home from Philadelphia gave me 2 hours to think. And thinking was the last thing I wanted to do. Every mile brought more horrifying possibilities flooding through my mind. What if Marcus had known about Brittany's past all along? What if the grief counseling story was his idea? What if my sweet, sensitive boy had turned into the kind of man who would help a stranger murder his own mother for insurance money? By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd worked myself into a state somewhere between terror and fury. My phone had been buzzing with texts all evening. Marcus, some distant cousins, even a few neighbors who'd heard about the wedding gate incident through the small-town gossip network. But it was the text from an unknown number that stopped me cold. We need to talk. Tonight. Come alone. A friend. I stared at the message, my heart hammering. Who could possibly know what I'd discovered today? I'd only told Tom, and he'd warned me not to tell anyone else, unless someone had been watching me. I looked around my quiet neighborhood, suddenly noticing every shadow, every parked car that might not belong. The maple tree in my front yard cast strange patterns across my lawn in the porch light, and for the first time in my adult life, I was genuinely afraid to go into my own house. My phone rang. Marcus. Mom, thank God you answered. We need to talk. I'm tired. Sweetheart, it's been a long day. I know, and I'm so sorry about the confusion at the club. Brittany feels terrible about the mix-up. Mix-up? He was still calling it a mix-up. Does she? How terrible does she feel exactly? Silence. Then, Mom, you sound angry. Angry, I forced a laugh. Why would I be angry? It's not every day a mother gets banned from her son's wedding like some kind of criminal, but hey, these things happen, right? The security company screwed up the guest list. Brittany's handling it. She's firing them and demanding a full apology. More lies. Each one delivered with the same patient tone he'd been using for months. When had my son become such an accomplished liar? Marcus, honey, can I ask you something? Of course. How exactly did you and Brittany meet? I know you said a conference, but what kind of conference? Another pause, longer this time. Just a business thing. Why? I'm curious about my new daughter-in-law. We haven't had much chance to talk, you know, given how busy she's been planning your perfect wedding. Mom, his voice carried a warning I'd never heard before. What's really going on? You've been acting strange for weeks. Strange? I'd been acting strange. Not him, not his wife who'd banned me from their wedding. Me. I've been thinking about your father lately, I said, deciding to test Tom's theory. About his life insurance policy. About how that money will eventually come to you when I'm gone. Dead silence. Marcus, you still there? Why are you talking about insurance policies? Because I'm 67 years old. And smart people plan ahead. I've been thinking about updating my will, maybe setting up a trust. Brittany seems like a sensible girl. Maybe she has some advice about financial planning. You don't need to worry about that stuff yet, Mom. You're healthy. You've got years ahead of you. But his voice was tight now. Careful, like someone walking through a minefield. Still, it's good to be prepared. The policy is substantial, $750,000, plus the house, plus my savings. That's a lot of money for a young couple just starting out. Mom, we should talk about this in person, tomorrow. Can you come over for dinner? To your house? The one I've never been invited to? Brittany wants to make up for today's misunderstanding. She's planning something special. Something special. The word sent chills down my spine. That's sweet of her, but I think I'll pass. I'm not feeling very social right now. Please, Mom, it's important. To both of us. Both of us. The way he said it made it sound like a business proposition, not a family dinner. I'll think about it, I lied. Good night, Marcus. I hung up before he could respond and immediately called Tom. They want me to come to dinner tomorrow, I said without preamble. At their house. Absolutely not. Tom? What if we're wrong? What if Marcus really doesn't know? Eleanor, listen to me carefully. In my research today, I found something else. Something I didn't want to tell you in person because I hoped I was wrong. My blood turned to ice. What? Brittany took out a life insurance policy on you 3 months ago. A $2 million policy, with Marcus as the beneficiary and herself as the backup. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto my kitchen counter. She'd taken out a life insurance policy on me 3 months ago, before they were even engaged, which meant she'd been planning this since the beginning. And Marcus had to know about it. You can't take out a life insurance policy on someone without their knowledge unless you have very specific information about their health, their finances, their family situation. Information only a son would have. I picked up the phone with trembling fingers. Tom? I'm here. My son is trying to kill me. Yes, he said quietly. I think he is. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every creak of the house, every car passing on the street, every normal sound of nighttime felt like a threat. I sat in my living room with all the lights on, Tom's folders spread across my coffee table, trying to piece together when my son had stopped being my son and started being a stranger. The insurance policy was the smoking gun, but there were other clues I'd missed. The way Marcus had started asking about my medications after Robert died. Are you taking care of yourself, Mom? Getting regular checkups? The way he'd volunteered to help with my finances. Let me handle the bills, Mom. You're grieving. You shouldn't have to worry about this stuff. I thought he was being caring, protective. Instead, he'd been gathering information for his wife's business plan. At 6 a.m., exhausted but wired on adrenaline and coffee, I made a decision. I was going to their dinner tonight, but not alone and not unprepared. First, I called Tom. I need you to do something that might not be strictly legal. I'm listening. I need you to bug me, wire me up, record everything. If they're planning to kill me, I want evidence. Eleanor, that's incredibly dangerous. More dangerous than ignoring this and hoping it goes away? Tom, that woman has killed 4 husbands. She's taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on me. My son is lying to my face about how they met. I'm already in danger. At least this way, we might be able to stop them. Silence. Then, I know someone. Former FBI. Does private security now. He can set you up with recording equipment that looks like jewelry. Good. What else do we need? Backup. Someone watching the house while you're inside. Can your FBI friend handle that too? Yes, but Eleanor, if this goes wrong, at least you'll have evidence to convict them. Tom, I'm 67 years old. I've buried a husband, raised 3 kids alone, and survived more heartbreak than anyone should have to. I'm not going to let some blonde gold digger and my own son scare me into hiding. The recording equipment arrived at 3 p.m., delivered by a serious-looking man in his 50s who introduced himself simply as Jake. The microphone was disguised as a pearl pendant, nearly identical to the ones I already owned. The battery pack was built into what looked like a normal leather purse. Voice activated, Jake explained, showing me the simple controls. Records everything within 20 feet. Battery lasts 8 hours. If you're in real danger, press this button twice, and my team will be inside the house in 30 seconds. Your team? 3 men positioned around the property. If you need immediate help, we'll be there. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror, wearing a wire to dinner with my son. 6 months ago, the most exciting thing in my life was deciding between 2 different brands of cat food. Now I was conducting a sting operation against my own family. Marcus called at 5 p.m. Mom, you're still coming tonight, right? Brittany's been cooking all day. I'll be there at 7. Great. And Mom? Brittany really wants to clear the air about yesterday. She feels terrible about the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. He was still calling it that. I'm sure she does. Sweetheart. The drive to their house should have taken 15 minutes. I stretched it to 30, taking the long way, giving Jake's team time to get into position. The house was in one of those new developments where every lawn looks like it was measured with a ruler and every mailbox cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Perfect for a professional wife who specialized in marrying men with money. Brittany answered the door, wearing a white sundress that probably cost more than my car payment. Her smile so bright it could have powered the city grid. Eleanor, I'm so glad you came. I've been sick about yesterday's mix-up. Come in, come in. The house was exactly what I'd expected, all gray and white and chrome, the kind of place that looked like a magazine spread but felt like no one actually lived there. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested real people with real lives. Something smells wonderful, I said, playing my part. Beef Wellington. Marcus mentioned it was one of your favorites. It wasn't. I'd never eaten beef Wellington in my life, but Marcus wouldn't know that. We'd never talked about fancy food, which meant either Brittany was guessing or she'd gotten her research confused with one of her other victims. How thoughtful. Where is Marcus? Putting wine in the refrigerator. He'll be right out. Can I get you a drink? I made a special cocktail, elderflower and gin, very refreshing. Just water for now, thanks. She looked disappointed but quickly recovered. Of course. You must be tired after yesterday's stress. I still can't believe that security company put your name on the exclusion list by mistake. There it was again. The lie, told with such conviction that I almost believed it myself. Marcus appeared from the kitchen, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing the same false smile as his wife. Mom, you look great. How are you feeling? Oh, you know how it is at my age. Every day above ground is a good day. They exchanged a quick glance that I might have missed if I hadn't been looking for it. Don't say things like that, Mom. You're going to live forever. No, I realized with crystal clarity. They really didn't want me to live forever. But they were about to find out that this old lady wasn't going down without a fight. Dinner was a masterpiece of psychological warfare disguised as family bonding. Brittany had clearly done her homework. She asked about my garden, my book club, my volunteer work at the animal shelter. All the right questions delivered with perfect timing and genuine-seeming interest. Marcus played the devoted son, asking about my health, my sleep, whether I'd been taking my vitamins. To anyone watching, we looked like a normal family working through a minor misunderstanding. But I caught the looks they exchanged when they thought I wasn't paying attention. The little nods, the raised eyebrows, the silent communication of 2 people executing a plan. Eleanor, Marcus tells me you've been having some trouble sleeping lately. Brittany said as she served dessert, a beautiful lemon tart that probably came from the most expensive bakery in town. I hadn't told Marcus anything about sleeping problems, because I didn't have sleeping problems. Oh, you know how it is. Sometimes my mind races at night. That's so common at your age. My grandmother had the same issue. Her doctor prescribed something wonderful, really helped her relax. What kind of something? Marcus leaned forward. Actually, Mom, we've been talking, and we think you might benefit from seeing Dr. Peterson. He's Brittany's family doctor, specializes in older patients. Older patients. Like I was some kind of geriatric case instead of a perfectly healthy 67-year-old woman. That's thoughtful, but I have a doctor? Doctor Martinez has been taking care of me for 15 years. Of course, Brittany said smoothly, but Dr. Peterson has such a modern approach, very forward-thinking about medication management for seniors. Medication management. The phrase sent chills down my spine. What kind of medications? Just things to help with quality of life. Sleep aids, anxiety medication, maybe something for memory issues if they develop. Memory issues. They wanted to drug me until I was too confused to manage my own affairs. Classic elder abuse, dressed up as caring concern. I don't have memory issues. Not yet, Marcus said, but prevention is important. Dr. Peterson believes in staying ahead of these things. How considerate of him. And how exactly did this topic come up between you two? Another look passed between them. Brittany recovered first. Marcus mentioned that you seemed forgetful lately. Nothing serious, just little things. We thought it might be stress from losing Robert. Forgetful. I hadn't been forgetful about anything, but I was starting to understand their strategy. Establish a pattern of concern about my mental capacity, get me on medications that would actually cause confusion and memory problems, then use my deteriorating condition to justify taking control of my finances. Brilliant, really. And it would have worked if I hadn't figured it out. Well, I said, taking a bite of the lemon tart, I appreciate your concern. Both of you. It means so much to know my family is looking out for me. Always, Mom, Marcus said, his voice thick with fake emotion. We just want you to be safe and comfortable. Speaking of comfortable, Brittany said, we've been thinking about your living situation too. Here it comes, I thought. What about my living situation? That big house all by yourself. It must be lonely. And all those stairs. What if you fell? I've been living in that house for 30 years. I think I can manage a few stairs. Of course you can, Marcus said quickly. But maybe it's time to think about something smaller, easier to maintain. There are some beautiful senior communities. Senior communities. They wanted to move me into assisted living, where someone else would control my daily routine, my visitors, my access to my own money. I'm not ready for a nursing home. Marcus. Not a nursing home, Brittany corrected. An active adult community, independent living with built-in support services. We've actually looked at a few places. They'd been house hunting for me, without asking, without telling me. How thoughtful and expensive, I imagine. Well, yes, but that's what your savings are for. The equity in your house would more than cover the entrance fee, and your monthly expenses would actually be lower. Lower monthly expenses because I'd have signed over all my assets to pay the entrance fee. Standard operating procedure for this type of scam? Isolate the victim, control their environment, manage their money, then wait for nature to take its course. Except they weren't planning to wait for nature. It sounds like you've given this a lot of thought, I said carefully. We just want what's best for you, Marcus said. We love you, Mom. Love. He said it like he meant it, looking directly into my eyes with the same earnest expression he'd worn as a child when promising he hadn't broken my favorite vase. But this time, I knew he was lying. And more importantly, he didn't know that I knew. Which meant I had one advantage in this deadly game. They thought I was just a confused old lady who could be manipulated with fake concern and forced smiles. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Well, I said, setting down my fork and smiling at both of them, this has been such a lovely evening. Thank you for including me in your plans for my future. It's so nice to know you're both thinking about what's best for me. The look of satisfaction that passed between them told me everything I needed to know. They thought they'd won, but the game was just beginning. I left their house at 9:30 p.m. with hugs, promises to think about their suggestions, and a doggy bag of leftover beef Wellington that I planned to feed to my neighbor's garbage disposal. The recording device had captured every word, every pause, every carefully orchestrated manipulation. Jake was waiting in my driveway when I got home, leaning against a black SUV like some kind of suburban secret agent. "How'd it go?" he asked as I approached. "They want to drug me, move me into assisted living, and manage my money until I conveniently die of natural causes. Did you get it all on tape?" I patted my pearl necklace. "Every lying word." "Good. We need to move fast. Tom's already contacted a federal prosecutor. Turns out they've been tracking Brittany Collins across 3 states. You just gave them the evidence they needed." Federal prosecutor. This was bigger than I'd imagined. "How long do we have?" "Maybe a week before they escalate. Based on the pattern with her other victims, she'll push hard for the doctor visit and the housing change. Once she gets you on medication and isolated, things move very quickly." I thought about Marcus's earnest face across the dinner table, talking about my safety and comfort while planning my destruction. "Jake, can I ask you something? In your professional opinion, is my son a victim or a willing participant?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Mrs. Watson, in my experience, it's rare for someone to be completely innocent in these situations. Your son may have started as a victim, but those insurance forms? The dinner tonight? He's in it now, whatever his original intentions were." The words hit harder than I'd expected. Some part of me had still been hoping Marcus was just manipulated, confused, led astray by a master manipulator. But the evidence said otherwise. What happens next? Tom will call you tomorrow with a plan. For now, act normal. If they contact you, be agreeable, but don't commit to anything specific. And Mrs. Watson? Don't eat or drink anything they give you. Nothing. After Jake left, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea, staring at the recording device. Such a small thing to contain such enormous betrayal. Tomorrow, I would have to face my son knowing he wanted me dead. Tomorrow, I would have to pretend everything was normal while federal agents built a case against my own family. But tonight, I was just a mother, grieving the loss of a child who was still alive. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Thanks for coming tonight, Mom. Brittany was so happy to finally connect with you. Let's talk about Dr. Peterson tomorrow?" I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. "Had a lovely time. We'll think about everything we discussed." His reply came immediately. "Love you, Mom." 3 words that should have warmed my heart. Instead, they felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I turned off my phone and went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay in the darkness thinking about the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who cried when he accidentally stepped on a butterfly, who told me every day until he was 8 that he was going to marry me when he grew up. Somewhere along the way, that little boy had become a man who could look me in the eye and plan my murder. And the worst part? I still loved him. Tom called at 7 a.m. with news that made my coffee taste like acid. The prosecutor wants to move fast. They're planning arrests within 48 hours. Both of them? Brittany, definitely. Marcus, they're still building the case. But Eleanor, there's something else. Something we discovered overnight. I gripped the phone tighter. What now? Brittany's first husband, the one who supposedly died in a car accident 5 years ago. He didn't die. He's alive, living in witness protection. And he's been helping the FBI track her ever since. The room started spinning. What? David Chen faked his death to escape her. She'd been slowly poisoning him with prescription medications, the same pattern she used with the others. He figured it out, went to the FBI, and they helped him disappear while building a case against her. So she thinks she's killed 5 people. But she's only actually killed 4. 3. Michael Collins, the boating accident victim. Also alive, also in witness protection. Eleanor, this woman is sloppy. She's gotten away with it because she moves frequently and changes her name. But she's not as smart as she thinks she is. A bitter laugh escaped me. Smart enough to fool my son. About that, the FBI wants to offer Marcus a deal, testify against Brittany, admit to his role in the conspiracy, and he'll do minimum security prison time instead of facing murder conspiracy charges. Prison time. My son was going to prison. How long? 2 to 5 years. Probably out in 3 with good behavior. I closed my eyes, trying to process it all. 3 years. Marcus would be 45 when he got out, still young enough to rebuild his life, if he was smart enough to take the deal. What if he doesn't cooperate? Then he goes down with her. Murder conspiracy, insurance fraud, elder abuse. He's looking at 20 to life. 20 to life for trying to kill his own mother. Tom, I need to see him before the arrests. I need to give him a chance to do the right thing. Eleanor, that's incredibly dangerous. If he's desperate, he's still my son. Maybe, underneath all this, he's still the boy who used to bring me dandelions. Maybe he can still be saved. And if he can't? I thought about that for a long moment. Then at least I'll know I tried. Tom arranged a meeting for that afternoon. Neutral location, FBI surveillance, every precaution possible. But I insisted on seeing Marcus alone first, giving him one last chance to confess, to choose his mother over his murderous wife. The coffee shop was nearly empty at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, like he hadn't slept any better than I had. Mom, thanks for meeting me. We need to talk about last night. Yes, we do. Brittany's concerned that you seemed resistant to our suggestions. She thinks maybe we came on too strong. Still lying, still manipulating, even now when everything was about to fall apart. Marcus, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Okay? Do you know who your wife really is? His face went very still. What do you mean? I mean, do you know about her previous marriages? Her previous names? Her previous widowhoods? The color drained from his face completely. Mom, do you know about the life insurance policy she took out on me? Do you know about David Chen and Michael Collins? He started to stand up, but I grabbed his wrist. Sit down, Marcus. We're going to finish this conversation. How do you... He slumped back into the booth. Who told you? Does it matter? What matters is that you have a choice to make. Right now. Today. You don't understand. It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. He looked around the coffee shop like a trapped animal, then leaned forward and lowered his voice. She said she would kill you anyway if I didn't help. She said if I cooperated, she'd make it quick, painless. If I didn't, she'd make you suffer. The words hit me like a physical blow. So you chose to help her murder me to spare me pain? I thought maybe I could protect you somehow. Find a way to warn you or stop her or... He buried his face in his hands. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this. For the first time in days, I heard my real son's voice. Scared, ashamed, but real. Marcus, look at me. He raised his head, and I saw tears in his eyes. The FBI is going to arrest both of you tomorrow, but they're offering you a deal. Testify against Brittany, and you'll do minimum time instead of life in prison. How do you know about the FBI? Because I've been working with them. Because I'm not the helpless old lady you and your wife thought I was. He stared at me in shock. You... What? I recorded everything last night. Every lie, every manipulation. Every plan to drug me and steal my money. It's all on tape, Marcus. Oh, God. He started shaking. Oh, God, she's going to kill me when she finds out. No, she's not. Because she's going to be in federal custody. The question is whether you'll be in the cell next to her or whether you'll take the deal and testify against her. I can't. She'll... Marcus. I reached across the table and took his hand. She can't hurt anyone anymore. It's over. But you have to choose, right now, whether you want to save yourself or go down with her. He was quiet for a long time, staring at our joined hands. Finally, he whispered, "What kind of deal?" The next morning, I woke up to the sound of police sirens. Not unusual in any neighborhood, but these were close. Very close. I looked out my bedroom window and saw them. 3 black SUVs parked in front of the house 2 streets over. Marcus and Brittany's house. My phone rang. Tom. It's happening now. Marcus called his contact at the FBI at midnight last night. He's taking the deal. Relief flooded through me so suddenly I had to sit down on my bed. He's cooperating? Full cooperation. He's telling them everything. How Brittany recruited him, how she coached him to lie about his background, how she planned to kill you. Eleanor, your son is saving his own life and helping put away a serial killer. Through my window, I could see neighbors gathering on their lawns, pointing and whispering. In a few hours, the whole town would know that Marcus Watson had been arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, that his wife was a serial killer, that his own mother had been the target. The gossip would be unbearable, but I didn't care. Marcus was alive, and he was doing the right thing, finally. What happens now? Brittany will be charged with 4 counts of murder, multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Marcus will be charged with conspiracy and fraud, but with his cooperation, he'll probably serve 2 years. 2 years. It seemed like nothing compared to what could have happened. "Tom, can I see him?" "Before," he asked the same thing. "The FBI will allow 1 supervised visit before his sentencing." The visit took place 3 days later in a sterile conference room at the federal building. Marcus was wearing an orange jumpsuit that made him look younger than his 42 years. When he saw me, he started crying before I even sat down. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I know you are, sweetheart. I never meant for it to go this far. At first, she just seemed like someone who understood loss, you know. She said she'd lost her husband too, said she knew how it felt to be alone." "How did it start?" "The grief counseling group was her idea. She said I needed to process Dad's death better, that I was carrying too much anger. She helped me see that you'd been controlling, that you used guilt to manipulate me. The oldest trick in the book, convince the victim that their support system is actually the enemy." "And I believed her," Marcus continued. "She was so smart, so beautiful, so understanding. She made me feel like I was the only person who'd ever truly understood her." "When did you realize what she really was?" "Not until after we were married. She started asking detailed questions about your health, your finances, your daily routine. When I asked why she was so interested, she said she wanted to help me plan for your future care. And then she showed me the insurance policy, said it was just smart planning, that all families did things like this. But something felt wrong about it. The amount was so high, and she'd filled out all the paperwork without telling me. That's when you should have come to me. I tried to back out. I told her I'd changed my mind, that I couldn't go through with it. That's when she told me about her other husbands. My blood ran cold. She confessed. She said if I tried to leave her or warn you, she'd kill you anyway and make it look like I did it. She had contingency plans, Mom. Photos of me at your house, copies of my key, evidence that would make it look like I'd been planning it alone. The level of manipulation was staggering. Brittany had trapped my son as thoroughly as she'd trapped her other victims. Why didn't you come to the police? With what proof? Her word against mine? She was careful. Mom, everything looked innocent on the surface. The insurance policy, the doctor referrals, the housing suggestions. It all looked like a loving family taking care of an aging parent. He was right. Without inside knowledge, without recorded conversations, it would have looked like normal family planning. Marcus, what you did, recording that conversation with the FBI, agreeing to testify, that took courage. It took you showing me I had a choice. Until that moment in the coffee shop, I thought I was trapped. I thought there was no way out that didn't end with you dead. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the enormity of what had almost happened. Mom, will you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it, but you're my son. Of course I forgive you. Will you wait for me? I know 2 years is a long time. Marcus, I waited 42 years for you to grow up and become the man I raised you to be. I can wait 2 more years for you to come home. He smiled through his tears, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in over a year. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. And when you get out, we're going to start over. Clean slate. Promise? Promise. The trial made national news. Black Widow's Web, how a serial killer targeted families through grief counseling, ran on the front page of newspapers across the country. Brittany Collins became the face of predatory manipulation, and our small town became ground zero for a media circus. I testified for 3 days, telling the court about the laminated photo, the dinner conversations, the systematic isolation from my son. The prosecution used the recordings from that final dinner to devastating effect, playing Brittany's voice as she discussed medication management and housing changes with chilling calculation. Marcus testified for 2 days, detailing how Brittany had recruited him, manipulated him, and ultimately threatened him into compliance. His testimony was crucial in establishing her pattern of operation and her psychological control techniques. The defense tried to paint Marcus as the mastermind and Brittany as another victim, but the evidence was overwhelming. David Chen and Michael Collins, her supposedly dead husbands, testified via video link from witness protection. Their stories were eerily similar to what she'd attempted with Marcus and me. Brittany showed no emotion throughout the trial. She sat at the defense table in a conservative blue suit, taking notes and whispering to her lawyers as if this was all a minor business disagreement. Only once did I see her mask slip, when the prosecutor played the recording of her discussing my memory issues and need for medication management. For just a moment, her eyes met mine across the courtroom, and I saw pure rage. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Marcus was sentenced 3 weeks later to 2 years in minimum security federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. He would serve his time at a facility in North Carolina that focused on white-collar criminals and first-time offenders. As I watched my son being led away in handcuffs, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that justice had been served, grief for the years we'd lost to Brittany's manipulation, hope that he would use his time in prison to truly understand what he'd done and why. But mostly, I felt proud. Proud that when it mattered most, when he had to choose between saving himself and doing the right thing, my son had found his moral compass. The media attention died down after a few months, but the impact on our small community lingered. Property values dropped in Marcus and Brittany's neighborhood. The grief counseling center where they'd met implemented new screening procedures. Several families came forward with their own stories of financial manipulation by people they'd trusted. I became something of a reluctant expert on elder abuse prevention, speaking at community centers and senior living facilities about the warning signs of financial exploitation. It wasn't a role I'd ever imagined for myself, but it felt important. If my story could prevent even one family from going through what we'd experienced, then something good had come from the nightmare. The insurance company, after much legal wrangling, returned the premiums paid on the policy Brittany had taken out on my life. I donated the money to a nonprofit that helped families of financial crime victims. Tom and I grew closer during the trial, bonding over our shared concern for Marcus and our determination to see justice done. He'd lost his brother Robert, but he'd gained a sister-in-law who appreciated his legal expertise and his dry sense of humor. 6 months after the trial, I received an unexpected visitor. David Chen, Brittany's first victim, had come to thank me in person. "Mrs. Watson, I wanted you to know how grateful I am for your courage," he said as we sat in my living room. "If you hadn't stood up to her, if you hadn't gathered evidence, she would have kept killing. You'd already survived her once. You were the one who went to the FBI first. But I couldn't prove she was still active. Your case gave them everything they needed to stop her permanently." We talked for 2 hours about the psychological tactics Brittany had used, the way she'd isolated each of us from our support systems, the gradual erosion of our ability to trust our own instincts. "The hardest part," David said as he prepared to leave, "was accepting that I'd been so completely fooled, that someone I'd loved and trusted had been planning my death from the moment we met. But you survived, and more importantly, you found the strength to fight back. So did you, and so did your son." Eventually, after he left, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset and thinking about the strange turns life can take. A year ago, I'd been just another grieving widow, trying to rebuild her life after losing her husband. Now I was a survivor, an advocate, and oddly enough, more confident and capable than I'd ever been. Marcus wrote me letters every week from prison. They started as apologies, but gradually became real communication, sharing his thoughts about the books he was reading, the classes he was taking, his plans for when he was released. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of honesty instead of obligation. But the most unexpected change in my life came in the form of Jake, the security specialist who'd helped wire me for that crucial dinner. What had started as a professional relationship had evolved into friendship, and then into something deeper. "You know," he said one evening as we walked through the park near my house, "I've been in the security business for 20 years, and I've never met anyone as brave as you." "Brave?" I was terrified the entire time. Brave isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Well, when you put it that way, Eleanor Watson, you took on a serial killer and won. You saved your son's life and probably prevented other murders. If that's not heroic, I don't know what is. I looked at this kind, strong man who'd helped me through the darkest period of my life and realized something remarkable had happened. At 67, I'd fallen in love again. But that's a story for another day. Marcus came home on a Tuesday in October, 2 years and 3 months after he'd been arrested in our driveway. I was waiting for him at the prison gates with Jake and Tom, clutching a welcome home sign that felt simultaneously appropriate and absurd. He looked different. Older, definitely, but also cleaner somehow. The desperate, haunted expression he'd worn during the trial was gone, replaced by something calmer and more settled. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." We hugged for a long time while Tom and Jake pretended to be fascinated by the prison architecture. The drive home was quiet at first. Marcus stared out the window at familiar landscapes he hadn't seen in over 2 years, while I gripped the steering wheel and tried to think of something to say that wouldn't sound forced or artificial. Finally, he spoke. "Mom, I wrote you a letter last week, but I didn't send it because I wanted to say this in person." "Okay. I know you've forgiven me. You've told me that in every letter, every phone call, every visit. But I need you to know that I understand now why forgiveness isn't enough." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean?" "I mean I spent 2 years in therapy, Mom. Individual therapy, group therapy, family systems therapy. I had to really examine what I did and why I did it. And the truth is, even before Brittany, I was taking advantage of you." This was not the conversation I'd expected to have on his first day home. "Marcus." "No, let me finish. The mortgage payments to Rebecca and Richard that you covered because I asked you to. The time I borrowed money from your emergency fund for my business investment that failed. The way I'd guilt you into babysitting or helping with projects by implying you owed it to me because Dad wasn't around." I pulled into a rest stop and turned around to face him. "You were a single father. I wanted to help. But I manipulated you into helping more than you should have. I used your love for me as a tool to get what I wanted. Brittany didn't create that pattern. She just exploited it." The honesty in his voice was startling. This was not the Marcus who'd gone to prison, defensive, angry, blaming everyone but himself. This was a man who'd done the hard work of looking at his own behavior. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to earn your trust back, not just receive your forgiveness. I want to prove that I can be the son you deserve, not just the son you love." "How do you want to do that?" "I got my real estate license while I was inside. I want to help people buy and sell homes honestly, ethically. I want to build a life based on integrity instead of manipulation." "That sounds like a good plan. And I want to pay you back. Every dollar I ever took from you, with interest. It'll take time, but I want to make it right." I studied his face, looking for signs of the old Marcus, the one who'd made promises he hadn't kept. But all I saw was sincerity and determination. "Marcus, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Mom, I almost helped someone murder you. For money. There's no amount of apology that erases that. But maybe, if I spend the rest of my life proving that I've changed, maybe someday we can have a real relationship again." We have a real relationship now. We have a mother-son relationship built on your capacity for unconditional love. I want us to have a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. I got out of the car and walked around to his door. When he stepped out, I hugged him again, harder this time. "Marcus, I love who you're becoming. I love who you've always been. And I'm sorry it took me almost losing you to really see it." We drove the rest of the way home in comfortable silence. Jake had prepared dinner for us, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs and a salad. Tom joined us, and we sat around my kitchen table like a family. Not the family any of us had been born into, but the family we'd chosen to build from the wreckage of betrayal and manipulation. After dinner, Marcus and I sat on the back porch while Tom and Jake cleaned up. The October air was crisp, and the maple tree in my yard was showing off its fall colors. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy? Really happy?" I thought about the question seriously. 2.5 years ago, I'd been a grieving widow, isolated and vulnerable to predators. Today, I was engaged to a wonderful man, had a meaningful relationship with my brother-in-law, spoke regularly at conferences about elder abuse prevention, and had helped put a serial killer behind bars for life. Yes, I said finally. I'm really happy. Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Marcus. And I think you're going to be. I hope so. I'm going to work really hard at it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Taking Tom home. See you tomorrow. Love you. I smiled and texted back. Love you too. Marcus noticed my expression. You know, I never got to meet Jake properly before. Everything happened. He seems like a good man. He is. He saved my life, you know. Not just that night at dinner, but afterward. He helped me remember that I was strong enough to survive anything. Are you going to marry him? Maybe. Probably. We're taking it slow. I'm glad you found someone. Mom, you shouldn't be alone. I wasn't alone. I had you. No, you had the idea of me. The version of me you wanted to believe existed, but the real me was too selfish to see how much you needed companionship and support. Marcus, stop beating yourself up. You're here now, and you're present in a way you never were before. That's what matters. We sat quietly for a while, watching the stars come out in the darkening sky. Mom? Yes? Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for coming back to me. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Welcome home. 3 months later, Jake and I got married in my backyard, with Marcus walking me down the makeshift aisle and Tom officiating. It was a small ceremony, just us, a few close friends, and the family we'd built from the ashes of betrayal. As I stood under the maple tree where I'd sat so many evenings grieving my old life, I realized something profound. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the doorway to the best thing that happens to you. Brittany Collins had tried to destroy my family, steal my money, and end my life. Instead, she'd forced me to discover strength I didn't know I possessed, helped me find love I thought was lost forever, and given me a purpose that made every day meaningful. Sometimes justice isn't just about punishment. Sometimes it's about the beautiful life you build after surviving someone else's evil. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to share that beautiful life with the people who helped you fight for it. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.